You're a yoga teacher, or maybe a new yoga teacher, and you have new students that come into your class. Maybe multiple new students that come into your class. Let's talk about the best way to teach new students. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Jimmy Barkan. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing, hit the notification bell. You get notified when I post a new video. Anytime you're enjoying this video, hit the like button. So there's a good chance you're not going to have a brand new student that's been completely new to yoga. Every now and then that may happen. Back when I started teaching, and I opened my first studio in 1983 in Fort Lauderdale, everybody was new. Nobody knew what they were doing. There's a good chance they have some yoga experience, but there's a good chance they may not understand the type of yoga that you teach, especially if it's a specialized style of yoga. I teach the Barkan method. Maybe it's Bikram yoga, maybe it's Ashtanga, maybe it's Iyengar, so they may not be familiar with the postures that you teach. One of the biggest mistakes I see new teachers make is they put way too much attention on the new student. They're compelled to get that student to do the best posture that they can possibly do. And the problem with that is that it's not going to happen, not on their first day. So you're giving them all this information and all this attention, and you may never even see them again. Remember when you had your first yoga class? You were probably wanting to go in the back corner of the room. Remember, my teacher wanted people to come in the back so they could see people in front of them, but in the middle so that he could make sure that they were not hurting themselves, which brings us to a very important point. Do no harm. The times that you do want to address the new student, if they're doing something that could injure them. So therefore, you must jump in at that point. For example, standing head to knee. If they're holding their foot and their body is too low, they're going to put a lot of pressure on their lower back and they could hurt themselves. You want to make sure they come up a little bit more in that particular pose. Just for an example, where should that new student be in the room? So right in the middle, in the back is what I suggest, because they're probably not familiar with the type of yoga that you teach, and then they have access to you and they have access to people that are in front that do know what they're doing, so they can follow along. Another big problem with paying too much attention to the new student is that you start to neglect your regulars. So you got people that are coming in on a regular basis. You want to have a flow of energy to keep that class going. If you're putting all your attention on that new student, you're going to upset the flow. And now, if you're a yoga studio owner, you're going to relate to this even more so. If you neglect your regulars, they're the ones paying the rent. They're the ones that are on auto pay. The last thing you want to do is neglect them for somebody who you may never even see again. And also doesn't even want that attention because they're probably feeling a little bit self-conscious because they're new. Remember how you were on your first class. So here's an important concept. The more experienced you are as a teacher, the more people you'll be able to actually correct and teach. Now, as a new teacher, you're going to be able to guide anybody in your class, guide him through a flow, telling him what to do, what posture is coming next, and the cue to that pose. But to actually teach and to correct, to get the person to the next level, it depends on your experience. So new teachers, they're going to be pretty much the only people they're really going to be able to correct are the brand new students. And that's one of the reasons why new teachers flock to the new student, because they know that they can correct them. They know they're not going to challenge them. If you, however, are teaching somebody, let's say you're a new teacher and you've been teaching for, let's say, a year, and somebody comes into your class with some practicing yoga for 20 years that has a far more advanced practice than you, the last thing you're going to want to do is to correct them. What my suggestion is to tell them how wonderful they are in their pose, especially if that person happens to be the studio owner that's employing you to teach in their class. The last thing you're going to want to do is challenge them in that classroom situation. Because number one, you really don't have the credibility nor the experience to teach that person. So the more experienced you get, the more stable of students below you increases. So I've been teaching for yoga for 42 years. My practice was very advanced at the peak of my career. There's very few people on the planet that I cannot teach and correct. The ultra advanced people, I have the knowledge and the information from my experience to be able to tweak them into that next level, to that next place, the next experience. But as a younger, newer teacher, you don't have that experience yet. So you want to honor your level also as a teacher as well as a student. So when should you give the student the attention? Number one, like I said before, if they're hurting themselves, so if they're doing a position where you can see it could be injurious to their body, you've got to step up and tell them and make that correction. Otherwise, let them be. It's okay that they aren't able to do the posture to the best of their possible ability in that moment. Like I said before, you may never see them again and they don't want the attention. If you're a Bikram teacher or a Barkan teacher, there's definitely poses that you want to look out for. For example, the eagle pose. And we have this drill in our teacher training programs. And by the way, if you're interested in doing the teacher training program with me, live or online, there are applications in the description below. Click on the application. We'd love to have you join the family. We do this exercise in my teacher training program. It's called What's Wrong with This Picture? So for example, if we're doing the eagle pose and I'm holding my hands like this, and you're giving me the corrections and you're telling me how to do the position, or my hands are turned this way, you have to come in there and change their hands, because they're most likely, 90% of the time, they're not going to get the hands right. So instead of you're holding this way, they want to hold this way. So you have to understand that's one of the very first positions you want to look for. Second is standing bow. Many times students will turn their hands this way instead of this way. You've got to make the correction, because you could have the greatest bullet points ever expressed in time as a yoga teacher, and if they're holding their foot wrong and standing bow, doesn't matter, you're not helping them. So what I do is when I have a new person, I stand right next to that new person during the eagle pose. I stand right next to that new person during the standing bow. I anticipate that they're not going to be holding it right, and I make the correction. Otherwise, I'm pretty much letting them go. If you're a Barkan teacher, another posture people have trouble with as a beginning student is runner's lunge. And if their knee goes too far over their toes, they're definitely going to put pressure on the knee, and it could be injurious. So make sure the knee stacks over the ankle. So let's say you're correcting somebody in the standing bow, and they got, for example, and they're holding their hand wrong. What I'll do is I'll make the correction, and I'll say something like, you know what? Everybody holds wrong the first week. Makes them feel better. Then afterwards, encourage them. Tell them how wonderful they did. Maybe it's a white lie, maybe it isn't, but you want to encourage them to continue to practice. Don't miss tomorrow. You want to build up the momentum. If this practice worked for you and you're a teacher and you made the commitment to be a teacher, put yourself on the line to encourage others to do the same, not necessarily to teach, but to continue their practice, and maybe it'll transform their lives. Now let's talk about if that new student isn't following the class. All of a sudden they start doing something that maybe they've learned somewhere else, and they're doing different posture altogether. Then you really want to step in, and you don't want to necessarily call them out in front of the room. You may want to go over to them and privately say, look, it's very important that you stick with what we're doing in class. We all want to be doing the same postures the same way. So I'd appreciate it if you follow the classroom situation. And if you're not familiar with the poses, just do the best that you can. But to have somebody doing a completely different position, it's not that you're calling them out. You want to politely ask them to join the classroom situation so that everyone is doing the same thing. And that's really how the yoga classroom should work. It's what they call entrainment. When you see fish in the ocean, they're all swimming in a real fast way, in a direction way. They're in sort of an entrainment mind. They're in a one mind. Or you see flocks of birds up in the sky. They're all flowing in formation. The yoga classroom is a formation of doing the same postures. Someone's doing something different. It's definitely going to be distracting. So you're going to politely, not call them out in front of everyone because you don't want to embarrass them, but you can just politely say, please stick with the class and follow along. So let's sum it up. The more experienced you are, the more people you can correct. As a new student, you can really guide anybody. That's your job, is to guide the classroom, to make sure everyone is on the same page. But the more experienced you are as a teacher, the more people that you're able to actually correct and teach. There's a new student, they don't want the attention, don't give it to them anyway. Don't forget your auto pays. They're the ones paying the rent. Especially if you're a studio owner, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You want to make sure that the class is your priority, not the new person you may ever see again. If they start coming back the second time or the third time, yeah, you can start giving them a little more information, but don't be compelled to get them to do these postures. It's a lifetime experience, a lifetime progress. So therefore, a little bit of information. If they're hurting themselves, make the correction. If you're in the Bikram Barkan world, watch out for third part awkward pose, watch out for eagle pose, watch out for standing bow. But for the most part, leave them be. They don't want the attention anyway. So that's our episode for today. Thank you so much for watching. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing, hit the notification bell, smash that like button if you enjoy this video, share it with your friends. There's a share button. You can send it to people on emails or text messages. And I thank you for watching, and I'll see you at the next video. Bye, everyone.